19-304, approval of special education procedures manual. This is an action item.
Mr. Katalka, Mr. Chairman, and board members, you have in your packet and were given a copy of the proposed changes for the procedures manual. Before we go to that, there was just a little bit of information that I was asked to provide you with regard to the difference between the special education annual plan and the procedures manual. The annual plan is done as indicated annually, and the annual plan is reviewed by the local advisory committee and then presented to the board for approval. It was presented to the board for approval this past February. The entire federal portion of the special education budget is a part of that plan and approved by the board at that time. Any local monies for special education are a part of the local budget and approved by the board when the local budget is approved. With regard to the procedures manual, policies and procedures are another thing that local education agencies are required to have. The local advisory committee is required to review that. They're not required to approve it. They're also not required to approve the annual plan. They're just required to review it according to the statute. There, of course, are no budget items associated with the policy and procedures manual. Are there any questions about that information before we move on to discussion of the draft of proposed changes for this year?
Just like to add one thing, Dr. Heath. Mr. Kern submitted some a program or some requests to take a look at what our Special Education Advisory Committee does. And so we are going to meet on July 1st at 11 o'clock to go over that. And then all his recommendations will be forwarded to the CIAC committee to begin discussion during their very first meeting in September, I believe it is. So, thank you.
Okay, then going back to the action item in the agenda, there is a list summarizing what the changes were that were proposed. At this time, I would like to introduce you to Jeremy Brookman, who has served as the vice chair of the local advisory committee during the 2018-2019 school year and will graciously serve as the chair of the local advisory committee for the 2019-2020 school year.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Katalka, and school board members. The local advisory committee has reviewed the proposed changes and at this time have no questions or recommendations for further changes of those proposals to the Special Education Procedures Manual. Therefore, I would like to recommend on behalf of the local advisory committee that the board approve the proposed draft of those procedures manual as presented to both the advisory committee and the school board.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the special education procedures manual as presented?
I make a motion to approve the special education procedures manual as presented.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Branson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kern?
Abstain.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. Sechner?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.